Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, a show about the incredible people dedicated to helping those who've experienced trauma. My name is Guy McPherson, and my mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to inspire each of us to help those around us. All right, you ready? All right, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Rebecca M. Stahl. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here, Guy.
Awesome. So Rebecca is the interim executive director at Somatic Experiencing International and brings a unique blend of legal expertise and trauma-informed practice to their role. As a somatic experiencing practitioner, Rebecca infuses the organization's approach with a deep understanding of how trauma affects individuals, families, and systems. And this perspective is particularly valuable given SEI's work with vulnerable populations. Rebecca's journey to SEI was informed by their extensive child welfare and family law background. As former representative for children and child welfare cases in Los Angeles County, California, and Tucson, Arizona, they witnessed firsthand the impact of trauma on young lives. And this experience, combined with their academic pursuits, including a Fulbright scholarship, where they earned a Master of Law degree focusing on children's legal representation, provides a solid foundation for their trauma-informed leadership approach. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Guy. I'm really grateful to be here. Talk to you today.
So Rebecca, before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Oh, that's actually a difficult question, Guy. I was born in Michigan, but I grew up mostly in Northern California. I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places.
Okay, awesome. All right. So look, before we started recording, as I said to you, very impressive resume and background. How did you get here to Somatic Experiencing International? And you folks are sponsoring the podcast, honored to have you do so. But how did you get here?
I got here in the same way that many somatic experiencing practitioners get to SE. We have something going on in our lives. We go to an SE practitioner, it changes our lives, and then we think, how can I bring this to other people? So my personal story is I had just gotten back from New Zealand, and I started practicing law. I was in Tucson, started representing children, and within 6 months, I started having back pain, and within a year, I had back surgery. And my life before that, I'd been a yoga teacher, and so I thought, I can help this. Why am I not getting better, right? Wow. And having back surgery took me on another path of where do I find the way to navigate dealing with what I was dealing with at work, seeing what I was seeing every day at work, and still taking care of myself in that space. And it led me to a somatic experiencing practitioner in Tucson. And then I shortly thereafter moved to Los Angeles. And honestly, I think the SCP I was seeing was the only reason I was able to literally stand upright in court some days. Surgery helped my pain, but I was in chronic pain for years. And so led me to him. And I started to think to myself, how do I bring this into other parts of my life? Like many of us, right? That's how we all get here.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, why did you choose an SE practitioner?
Couple reasons. I think for me in particular, I am very kinesthetic. I somaticize, and I've known this my whole life. It's what got me to yoga originally. I'm fascinated by how our bodies interact with the world, what it means to have a body on this planet at all, right? And so for me, it sort of made the most sense. My brother is also a alternative health person. He actually was the first person to mention somatics to me. I don't even know how long ago. And so SE just made the most sense. And yeah, I ended up with an SEP who was great.
So you went through the treatment, and how did that transition to, first of all, what did you start to feel when you were going through this process?
Lots of things. And I think that's what makes SE unique, is that it's unique for each person, right? And it's small. So one of the things about me specifically, right, is I will go to other healing practitioners and energy workers, even massage therapy. And the energy is so overwhelming for my system. It feels really great in the moment. And then the next day, I'm actually in more pain. And this happened to me for years. And people would work on my body or work on energy and say, Rebecca, this is amazing. Your energy is moving more than anyone I've ever worked with. You're going to feel better tomorrow. You are forever going to feel better. And then I'd inevitably feel worse. And so one of the things about SE that I've always appreciated is that it's titrated, or particularly for nervous systems like mine, it is titrated. And so for me, it was slow at the beginning. I remember leaving some SE sessions pretty frustrated. Like, why am I not getting better? Why is this not changing? And then 3 months later, my SE practitioner would say, hey, do you remember how you felt 3 months ago? And all of a sudden I'd realize, oh, I'm feeling a lot better, actually. And SE was one of the only things that could touch my chronic pain for any length of time and consistently getting better over time.
Now, when you say titrated, for those people who might not know, what do you mean specifically? You mean the practitioner is working in a titrated way, or say
Yeah.
more?
So this is a fun one to explain because we all, I hope, went to elementary school and made volcanoes, right, erupt in our classrooms. And so we know what happens, I hope, when we take baking soda and dump a bunch of vinegar into it, right? It explodes. But if we take a dropper and drop a little bit of vinegar in at a time, all of a sudden it doesn't explode. And so that's how SE can work. It often starts that way because there's so much going on in a system that in order to get to the stuff in the middle, we need to create space for it. And so we create space for it by doing it slower. And when we do it slower, things can begin to open and settle and integrate. And that's what was missing for me and misses for a lot of people, is that there wasn't that space and time for any sort of settling or integration. And so titration is a way of touching into it, whatever it is. It can be body pain, it can be emotional things, it could be a pattern that is stuck because of a car accident or a fall, right? SE can work with so many different backgrounds, but we touch into it and then come out, give the space time to settle. It also gives the nervous system the recognition that it can get better. So one of the things that I think a lot of us have experienced is this lie that trauma tells us. And I'm using trauma in the SE sense, which really is about nervous systems and physiology. But the lie it tells us is that we are always going to feel this way. I'm never going to feel different. I'm always going to hurt. Whatever the pain is, it will always be there. And even if we can make a slight shift, and sometimes titration means a very slight shift, tells the nervous system this can change. And that, the knowledge of it can change at a deep physiological level, even if that change is small to begin with, changes everything. That is massive from a physiological and nervous system perspective, even if in the moment it feels small. And that's probably been one of the greatest lessons I've learned from SE.
Wow. A profound shift, even if it's a small shift. So you had this experience, and how long were you involved with this treatment?
I mean, SE is in that particular work. I don't know if I've even used the word treatment. It's work. It's learning to understand my own nervous system differently, letting it find its way to heal that it already knows, but giving it the space and time to do that. So on and off, I've been working with an SE practitioner for years. That particular person, I think the entire time I lived in Los Angeles, so about 3.5 years.
So it's one thing to go through the work, that experience, and it's another thing to say, all right, I want to start doing this myself. And then it's another thing again to end up where you are in this position. So how did that whole journey, what did that look like?
I like to get involved.
Just a little bit.
Right? No, I think in many ways that is it. And in many ways it was about how do we bring this work not just to the places where we think it should be, but to all the places in our lives. So SE as a as a trauma resolution model, clinical as somatic experiencing practitioners work with clients, right? From a variety of different backgrounds. I was a lawyer at the time. Now, I was also a yoga teacher, right? So I was in the training as a yoga teacher. And my day-to-day life was working with children and who were in the foster care system, had dealt with some of the most horrific things humans can do to each other, and dealing with that on a daily basis. And so I was in my very first SE training. I decided I want to learn how this works so that we can find other ways for it to show up in the world. It was really my goal. And I was sitting in my very first beginning one training, and we were talking about titration and pendulation. Pendulation is the back and forth piece of that explanation from before. And I started crying. And I realized that up until that point, my entire job had been to traumatize children. Now, nobody goes into being a lawyer for children in order to traumatize them, right? Our goal is to help children. And the system was set up in such a way that I would go meet a child after reading about them on paper, ask them about the worst thing that had ever happened to them in their entire lives, often within 3 to 10 days after it happening, right? And then asking them to trust me enough to tell me about it, and then trying to go into court and explain it, and then sending these children back out into their lives without any resolution of the conversation we had had. And what are we trained to do as lawyers? Ask lots of questions really quickly and get to the point. What is the worst thing you can do in a trauma-informed manner? Ask a lot of really fast questions to try to get to a point. And so for me in particular, trying to find ways to bring these ideas, to bring the learnings from SE, not only into a clinical practice where I think it has incredible implications for healing within the world, but how do we bring the lessons learned on how to interact with people out into other parts of our lives, that it can be life-changing for all of us in a variety of settings?
First of all, just going back to your whole experience, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about your journey into law and working with these kids. I mean, obviously, you can feel your compassion for, and I'm sure a lot of lawyers feel for these kids, but it's interesting to hear you say it have impacted you on a really different level, such that you wanted to make this shift. The other thing is, what made you think that, okay, let's take SE to this other area, not just limited, quote unquote, limited to the clinical setting? What made you think that way?
We needed something different. I think ultimately it was, I look around and in foster youth in particular, but anywhere, right? Lawyers in general asking, nobody goes to a lawyer. Okay, that's not entirely true. Most people don't go to a lawyer because things are going well in their lives. Right? Some people are preparing for good things. So that does, those folks, that's true. But it's not common, right? And so a lot of lawyers, criminal defense attorneys, family law attorneys, even prosecutors, right? It's not easy to be navigating the world of pain and trauma. And we are not trained in that. So knowing that that was important, and lawyers were starting to talk about it. I think 15 years ago, 20 years ago, less so. I went through all of law school and never heard the term vicarious trauma, meaning it doesn't happen to me directly, but I'm reading about it or hearing about it, and it has the same impact. Now, from an SE lens, it has literally the same impact on a nervous system, right? Whether it's somebody else's or our own experience, it impacts, because the idea of SE is that it's the event matters, and yet it's how it gets stuck in the nervous system that we're working with. Right. So it's not the event itself. We're working with the patterns within the nervous system that come from the event. And so if the patterns are the patterns, regardless of what the event is, even if it's vicarious, it is still there. So I really saw this as an opportunity to have a different conversation in the legal profession. And then now it's everywhere, right? How do I sit with a difficult experience and have a conversation with somebody who I disagree with? Right? How do I look at another human and say, that person is having a nervous system response? I still see their humanity, even if I'm upset with how they're treating me or whatever.
Interesting. Because I think a lot of what you're talking about is reflecting the awareness of trauma now in our culture and how prevalent it is, and how many of us have, to some degree, have experienced trauma. What does this mean specifically for SE and the work that you're doing? How is this showing up?
I think more and more people are looking for practitioners, right? People are recognizing, hey, this is something that I'm experiencing. The world is really difficult right now. How can I get some help to feel better? Because I don't feel good in this moment, whatever that is.
Right.
And so that's one way. I think we have more people coming to us from around the world asking to do trainings in their countries. So we, as Somatic Experiencing International, we run the trainings here in the United States, and we partner with people in 51 other countries to run trainings within their countries. Our manual is now translated into 22 languages, if you count English as well. So, I mean, there are people interested in somatic experiencing around the world, and that interest is growing exponentially on a daily basis. What it also, I think, means is that we have a bit of a responsibility because trauma is being talked about so openly, so importantly. I think the conversations happening have been needing to happen for a very long time. And I think some of what is happening is that the nuance and the uniqueness and the depth that really is the conversation around SE gets lost sometimes, gets lost in a world that wants an answer yesterday, that wants to say this one thing will make you feel better right now. And unfortunately, while sometimes there are things that can relieve pain in the moment, the depth, the nuance, those pieces take time, and they take work, and they take slowing down enough. And that's not part of our culture. And so we do talk a lot about how do we respond to the increased conversation around trauma in a way that comes from SE values around titration and pendulation and slowing down and seeing people for people, right? How do we have those deeper conversations in a world that wants answers yesterday?
So if we kind of extrapolated that and moved a little forward with that conversation, and now I'm thinking about our listeners here, what does SE invite new clinicians or students to think about? What does it invite them? What does it maybe even demand of them, if we can even use that word? What might new students expect from a training?
I think that's an interesting question, in that I think the answer is different depending on who the student is. So in order to become a student within the SE training, at least in the United States, and every country is going to have slightly different rules about this, you have to have a background in some kind of healing modality. So mental health treatment for sure, massage therapy, energy work, yoga, coaching, right? And have an ongoing practice. And so I think different people come in and then that first day learn different things, right? So part of what the SE training sort of demands of people is to be in a room with a variety of people from a variety of different professional backgrounds and learn from them. Some people have asked us, can we split the training so that mental health practitioners learn from mental health practitioners and other people learn together? Well, that loses the juice of what makes SE special and unique and important. So I think the other piece is that it's looking at all of these layers together, right? And so we have the acronym of somatic experiencing is SIBAM: sensation, images, behavior, affect, and meaning. And so we're looking at different layers of how people show up. And often, whatever professional background somebody is coming from, they're more likely to look at one of those than another. And we're asking folks to look at all of them. And I do think that we're asking people to slow down. One of the things about our training is that it is quite long. It's 216 hours of clinical or classroom experience. Now, much of that is experiential, which I think is important. As a lawyer, we did not do experiential learning. I walked into my first SE training terrified that we had to do experiential learning.
Right.
And I walked out of my last one thinking it was the most important part of the training, right? And so I think we're asking people to sit with new experiences, whether that's with each other, whether that's in a large global community, whether that's in what it means to look at healing in a new way. And so I think we ask people to do a lot of that.
You obviously have a fire about you. I mean, you can feel it, right? I mean, and even looking at your journey, you went through this process yourself, and you're like, something, something needs to change. The system needs to change. That to me is really exciting, and you can feel it, and that's why I love doing these interviews. I mean, because seriously, you can feel your passion and your energy for this. Having said that, what do you think, and I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but what do you think, like, you bring to this role you have now?
I think that ability to listen to everyone and get to know them. My favorite thing about being in this role is the community. The SE community, like I said, 52 countries, 22 languages, right? That I love. And so I think part of what I can bring to this is seeing how that's an advantage, that we are diverse, we're large, we are connected, and we all want the same thing. And that same thing is that we want to bring more healing into the world. And so if I sit with who I am and what lets me be in this role in a world that is so complex, in a community that is often complex, I like complexity. I think that's what makes us human. And I think too often we look for simplicity. Well, this is right and that is wrong. Mm-hmm. I was joking yesterday, I want a tattoo that says there is no right answer. And for a lot of people, that's difficult. For me, that's exciting. Don't get me wrong. There are days it is very difficult. There are moments where I just want to say, this is simple and here's the answer. And then I sort of laugh at myself and realize, no, that's not what humans are. And the more I sit with that, the more important that becomes. I was joking with some coworkers. I said, I have to go do this podcast. I have a feeling this conversation we're having is going to show up there. And here it is. So the conversation is, when people respond to an email or something that happens, often it comes with some reactivity. And if we sit with that reactivity, we can react to it, right? Or if we don't sit with that reactivity, we can react to it. We have all sent the email we wish we hadn't sent. I guarantee you there is not a person on this planet who has sent an email and has not sent the email they wish they had not sent. And yet, where does that get us? Can we take a moment and say, what is the need here? What is the need beneath that reactivity? How often is anger overshadowing hurt? Because for many of us, it's okay to be angry in the world. For others, it's not, right? That is very clear. So I get to be angry, but I can't be hurt. I can't say, you know what, this decision is really hurting me or scaring me. What are we allowed as professionals to be afraid? What if we said, hey, we're all allowed to be afraid because we all have those moments. And can we sit with that depth of humanity and get to that point without the reactivity? And that's really hard sometimes because the world is moving faster than ever. There is more happening. We're being asked to polarize more than ever. And it's even more important every single day that I can look at another person and say, oh, I see their humanity. I see their hurt. Can we work from there?
Love that. So you folks have a conference coming up.
We do.
Let's talk a little bit about that as we kind of wind down here. What, where, who?
Well, it is our 30th anniversary here at SEI. And so we are super excited to celebrate and to share SE and what people are excited about that they have been doing all of this time with their work through this conference. So that's what it is. And it's online. It's 2 days, November 7th and 8th. And you can go to our website to get registration. Wow. The simple words are the ones I forget. And so we're really excited about it. I'm really excited about it, to see and listen to people who have been doing this work for so long and have watched it grow up in the world and watched it change thousands of lives in their own lives. And so you do the math, that's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that this work has impacted. We get to talk about that for 2 days and share these stories, this community, how we're all different.
And is the conference going to be interviews with practitioners, trainings, or what?
It's going to be presentations by practitioners.
Okay.
Some of it is research. Some of it is, this is what I've done. Cool. And many of our global faculty. And so we have more than 50 faculty members around the world who teach SE. And so many of them are going to be there. And those who couldn't make it, we're working on getting them to do some trainings through SEI over the next year. We really want to celebrate and honor the work that has been done, because it doesn't belong to any one of us. It belongs to all of us and this community. And so that's what the conference is about, is sharing how SE can impact ourselves, right? Each other and the world.
Awesome. What comes to mind when I talk to you, Rebecca, is one of the words is empowering. You have an empowering message that comes through, and it's really inspiring. I love it. All right. So obviously we're going to have this linked up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. What's the best way for people to learn about SEI and you if they would like to?
Absolutely. So our website is worldwideweb.traumahealing.org. We've got, and on that website, obviously all of our US-based trainings are listed. Almost all of our international ones are as well. I think it's a massive investment for your future. And so taking a look, seeing where they are is one way. You can learn about SE. You can also go to all of our social media channels. Our social media person has done an amazing job of making sure we're on all the channels. Biggest ones are probably Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Okay. And again, we'll have all those linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Rebecca, awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Guy. This has been wonderful, and I love talking to you every time. So thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.